attorneys have any follow-up questions for you. If you'd like me to read a question again, just let me know and I'll be happy to do it. All right?
Thank you.
Okay. The first question reads as follows. Did you double check with the archive data from the NWS, the weather/temperatures the MPD provided you as being from the National Weather Service to validate the information for February 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 2014 for your ADH calculations? You may answer the question.
Yes, actually the material that was forwarded to me by the Maui Police Department, in fact, was on National Weather Service letterhead format.
All right, the next question reads as follows. Was there any indication of any rainfall during the time frame of specimen collection? On which day, if any? You may answer the question.
There was negligible rainfall during the period of time in question.
And the next question reads, to clarify, an unconscious person with maggots in a wound is still alive but not alert. Maggots are feeding on the wound source as food. If the person awakes, they will still have maggots being alert, correct?
That is correct. In fact, maggots are actually used as therapy. It's called the process is called meiosis, and this is the invasion of living tissues by fly larvae. And what happens is the maggots are actually feeding on dead tissue associated with the wound. While they are doing this, they are cleaning the wound out, removing dead tissue. They also produce substances that have an antibiotic and anesthetic effect.
The next question reads, did the improper preservative of formaldehyde and not 35% isopropyl alcohol by Tony Earls alter your ADH? You may answer the question.
No, this did not, because they were not in the 10% formalin for a sufficient period of time to result in undue alteration of the size of the maggot.
The next question reads, is most of your forensic bug work speculative? You may answer the question.
Trying to think of the term speculative and the implication of that. Okay. Taking under consideration that most of the time when I see something or when I'm provided with specimens, I have not been there to witness the event. The work that I do is based on the results of experiments that I have conducted or my colleagues have conducted and which we observe directly. So it's direct observation that then is extrapolated into situations where we are unable to observe.
The next question reads, after a food source is removed, how long would it take a stage 2 or 3 larva to die? You may answer the question.
This answer is going to be very specific. It depends. If it is a second instar maggot, I would anticipate that within a matter of probably 3 days, but again, this depends on the species that you would have death. If it is a third instar maggot, it depends on how far into the third instar the maggot is. If the maggot has acquired sufficient food at the time the food source is removed to continue its development, it would then continue on to the imperial stage and eventually emerge as an adult fly.
The next question reads, will maggots feed on each other if the food source is removed or depleted? You may answer the question.
Again, this is going to depend on the particular species of maggots that are involved. In this particular case, Chrysomya rufophases will become a predator and in fact also shows cannibalistic behavior in the absence of other types of food. It will prey on larvae of Chrysomya megacephalus.
The next question reads, did you notice any maggots, dead or dying to a lack of food/resources? You may answer the question.
I would assume that you're referring to my visit to the site, and I did not observe any maggots present, dead or alive, during my site visit. The substrate there is somewhat wet, and it would have been exceptionally difficult to locate any dead maggots in that particular substrate.
The next question reads, could different types of vegetation surrounding specimen cause varying timelines of the life cycle of nectar? You may answer the question.
Differences in timeline might result from differences in shading, but by and large, the plants themselves would not result in any differences in the duration of the different stages of the life cycle.
All right, the next question reads, do you believe you had an ample supply of specimens to experience a junk in, junk out analysis and conclusion? You may answer the question.
The answer to that is I believe I had a sufficient sample of specimens. I do not believe that we have here a case of junk in, junk out. It is based on the results of experiments. It's based on the results of my activities here in Hawaii for a period of over 30 years working with the species of flies involved.
The next question reads, what was the average temperature readings that you were provided by the National Weather Service? You may answer the question.
And the answer to that is I do not have an overall average temperature available.
All right, the next question reads, was the location where specimen were recovered, was it darkened by trees, shrubbery, or ground cover? You may answer the question.
In this particular instance, the area did have some trees overgrown, with some shrubbery, no low ground cover, but nothing that actually would have resulted in undue shading of the particular area.
All right, the next question reads, after the third instar larvae stage, the larvae turns into the puparium. Where would you find this most likely occurrence?
This would be in the area surrounding the body. The wandering stage tries to get as far away from the body as it can. For a maggot, this is a matter of several feet. And it would be in the soil in these areas surrounding the body.
The next question reads, please explain where the samples of the second instar specimen were found, parentheses, e.g. Gray sweater, black jeans, bra, etc. And then there's a follow-up question with ditto marks, third instar specimen.
So you're basically asking which of the samples contain which instars of maggots. So let's go through the 9 collections that I have. There's sample number 1, which was from clothing, contained second and third instar maggots of Chrysomya megacephala, and first and second instar maggots, Chrysomya rufifauces. The second container from clothing contained first and second instar maggots of Chrysomya megacephala. The specimens from the genes had an adult beetle in the genus Sphalanthus and had second and third instar maggots of Chrysomya megacephala. The specimen labeled green blanket contained third instar maggots of Chrysomya megacephala and second instar maggots of Chrysomya rufifauces. The specimen container labeled as black skirt had second instar maggots of Chrysomya megacephala and second instar maggots of Chrysomya rufifauces. The specimen container labeled as sweater gray had larvae measuring 3.5 millimeters total length and first instar of Chrysomya megacephala and first instar maggots of Chrysomya rufifasces. The specimen container labeled nail D contains second instar maggots of Chrysomya megacephala and second instar maggots of Chrysomya rufifasces. A container labeled number 1-7 raw contained third instar maggots of Chrysomya megacephala and second instar maggots of Chrysomya megacephala. And the specimen labeled soil indentation had second instar maggots of both Chrysomya megacephala and Chrysomya rufifasces.
The next question reads, does the availability or inavailability of food source affect and or play into the acceleration or deceleration of life cycle of Diptera species? Please elaborate with examples. You may answer the question.
Okay. And a lack of food is basically going to slow down the rate of development of the maggot. Okay. The only thing that the maggot really needs to do is to eat and grow as quickly as possible. If it cannot eat, then it is not going to have the raw material to allow it to continue its growth. Second question?
Well, please elaborate with examples.
Okay. Well, the example I would give is in a laboratory study. I had a graduate student who, for some reason, felt that he didn't need to feed his colonies every day or so, and he produced results there where the maggots were developing at a much lower rate than the maggots I would see with an adequate food resource, even though all other aspects of the experiment were the same.
You're finished?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. The next question reads, was the weather documentation you received through the MPD provided exclusively by the National Weather Service? You may answer the question.
Yes, that was the only weather data that we made available.
All right, the next question reads, why is isopropyl alcohol preferred over formalin as a preservative of insects?
We prefer the alcohols. Actually, the alcohol we would prefer would be a 70 to 80% ethyl alcohol. Isopropyl alcohol is used as a substitute for the ethyl alcohol that is not available. Formalin basically does not penetrate the cuticle of the maggot as well as the alcohols, which results in the outside surface being preserved very nicely, but the inside of the maggot essentially not being preserved, and over time this will simply rot away. The alcohols will go through the cuticle and preserve both the outside and the inside of the maggot. And this is true not only for maggots, but for insects in general. Formalin works wonderfully on softer tissues, but will not penetrate arthropod exoskeletons.
And the last question reads, are blowflies omnivores?
Okay. The answer to that is no. Okay. The maggots are going to feed on decomposing animal material, with a couple of exceptions where they would feed on plant material. But those are the oddballs of the family. Okay. So they will feed on decomposing animal material. The adults are going to be nectar feeders and occasionally will also feed on decomposing, or pardon me, not decomposing, but on solid material by regurgitating salivary enzymes onto the food resource, letting it pre-digest, and then sopping this back up as a liquid food. Okay, but you do not find them looking for plant material and animal material. It's going to be pretty much related to just animal material.
Any follow-up questions, Mr. Berger?
That's a good question, thank you. Dr. Goff, I just want to clarify one thing. The maggots that you laid, that you, I guess, found to be of the third instar, are those the maggots that you're saying came from the first OV position?
Yes.
And then the maggots that you, I guess, labeled under first and second instar, would those be the maggots that would have, I guess, emanated from the second OV position?
Yes.
And so when you went through the list of the specimen, for example, containers 1 and 2, for example, in container 1, you said, and that was just labeled as collected from clothing on February 13, 2014. There was maggots on the third instar level as well as the second and first instar level. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So would that mean to you that because we have the multiple levels, the maggots collected in that specimen from the clothing in general, they're from two different OV positions?
Yes.
And with respect to the maggot on the green blanket, and that was a specimen container labeled as green blanket, again, that contained instar levels 3 and 2 as well, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so that would, again, would mean that there were maggots on the green blanket from both OV positions, the first as well as the second.
That's correct.
And lastly, with respect to the soil indentation, the specimen container labeled the soil indentation, that only had maggots that you, I guess, categorized under the second instar. Is that correct?
Correct.
There were no third instar
No third
maggots that was collected from the indentation itself.
That's correct.
And so would that mean that that would have emanated from the second OV position or the latter OV position?
Yes.
And then you did mention that the maggots that you did observe when they're in the third instar state, there's a species that will become predators and that they will feed on other insect life in that area?
Yes.
And which are these the maggots that you observe from the third instar?
Check. Ones here are all in the second instar. The Chrysomia rufifosseus is the one that will become a predator in the absence of food.
Okay, so in order to become a predator, do they evolve into a third instar or go to the next level and then become predators?
Typically, it depends on the nutritional state. If they are in need of additional food, they will prey on smaller maggots, possibly first instars. They will go on to the third instar. The second instar will not predate on a third instar.
So the smaller maggots will not feed on the bigger maggots,
Right.
but the middle maggot may feed on the smaller maggot before.
Yes.
And this is the, not the Megasophila, but the other one,
Rufifosseus.
Rufifosseus.
Yes.
And I think I have one other question. Oh, with respect to the temperatures, you were asked if there was an average temperature you received. Did you testify earlier, though, that you required, in order to do the ADH formula, is more accurate if you had hourly temperatures?
Yes, that's what I was using.
Okay, so you did have that at your.
At my disposal, but I did not calculate, or at least do not remember had the average temperatures.
Okay. But you needed the hourly temperatures to do your calculations?
That's correct.
Thank you, I have no further
Questions?
If we're just to look at the specimen from the bra, that would just be a single OB position, correct?
The bra, which was labeled as item 8, contains chrysomia megacephala, both second and third instar.
Okay,
So you'll be looking at 2.
we'll be looking at 2. What about the nail?
That's there you have only second instar, so you're looking at a single.
Okay, and that, again, was exposed to a considerable longer time of development than the materials collected on the 13th?
Not necessarily.
So it had 2 extra days of development, correct? Or possibly.
Trying to think of the best way to phrase this. Since I do not know the history of the nail, I cannot say whether that was exposed for development or not. What I can't, for oviposition or not. What I can say is that the maggots that were present on that are indicative of the second oviposition.
And the maggots you received, did any of those seem to have died from starvation?
No.
Okay. Now, you had mentioned that you had received the weather data on official letterhead.
Official form.
Correct. And but you did not check beyond that, is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you check to see for any weather data out of Hana?
No, I did not.
And you mentioned that there was negligible rainfall.
Yes.
Again, that's as it pertains to what was going on in Kahului, correct?
That's correct.
How long does it take formalin to cause a change, to harm the maggots to a level you would consider significant?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of a month.
A month. And you received these when?
27th of May.
And they were collected in February, correct?
Correct.
Now, what's the term you use for the stage after the third instar?
I had the puparium.
And that burrows into the ground?
No, it'll just be on the ground.
And that does not require, that doesn't eat, correct?
Correct.
If you were to collect specimens, you would want to get, if you were collecting specimens off of a carcass, what kind of sample size would you take?
I typically take at least 200 to 300.
200 to 300?
Yes.
And would that be from different parts of the carcass? And were you given any maggots in this case off of anything purporting to be a jawbone?
No, I was not.
Thank you.
Just real briefly. Dr. Goff, you did mention though, with respect to the change of formula, when did you note the change of formula that Mr. Earls, pursuant to your instruction, you
I advised him to do that on the 23rd
of February?
of February. Oh, no.
So that was well within a month of the time that reported
Yes.
collection. And also when the defense lawyer asked you whether or not you can find or conclude that the second instar maggots collected from the male had a longer time to, I guess, develop than the third instar maggots from the first oviposition. Is there, do you have any facts to I guess, support that? Or were you given any facts to support the I guess the question or the theory from the defense lawyer that the maggots in the nail would have had 2 extra days to develop more so than the maggots from the first oviposition?
When I look at this, rate of development is pretty constant.
I'm sorry, it's pretty what?
It's going to be fairly constant. I don't see that the maggots on the nail necessarily developed any more slowly than the maggots that were collected from the blanket or something else. It's simply a matter of when the oviposition occurred, when it was available. Once the oviposition occurs, then things proceeded in a normal manner.
And so your estimate was that the second oviposition would have begun on February 12th at 6 o'clock in the morning at the least.
Yeah.
So there's
And after that.
and continued after.
And continue.
Take care. No, one other question. You mentioned earlier about the maggots collected by Mr. Earls and the Maui Police Department that was transferred or submitted to you were much better than the maggots you're used to receiving from other, I guess, agencies?
Objection, this state's testimony.
I believe
I'll
that's-
overrule the objection. You can answer the question.
I think the statement was that these were better than many that I had
better
received.
than me.
Yes.
Okay. And what do you mean by that?
I have received maggots that are dried. I have received maggots that have been shriveled into balls that you can't necessarily tell what they are. In this instance, I could identify them. I could tell what they were.
Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Mark?
Thank you.
I thought you testified on direct that you didn't have contact with Mr. Earls until May of 2014. Isn't that correct?
Objection, it's not the testimony now.
The objection is overruled. You can answer the question.
Let me double check. Yeah, it was in May. May 23rd, the materials were changed, or the fluids were changed.
Okay. All right.
No further questions, thank you.
Did you just testify on the council that it was February 23rd?
Yes, I misspoke.
So it's May 23rd?
May 23rd. Sorry.
Now, did that change your ability, or did that affect your ability to properly inspect and analyze the maggot specimens that you looked at?
No, in spite of the fact that they had been informed on for a period of time, these maggots were in good condition.
So with regards to inspecting these maggots, you said you would have collected 200 to 300 from various parts of a carcass that you would have
Yes.
tested?
If they were available.
And that's because,
Well, this has been asked and answered. It's also beyond the scope of the last question.
The objection is sustained.
is it fair to say when looking at a sample that you collect such a big sample because a smaller sample can be
You understand our objection?
unrepresentative?
This is not the end question.
The objection is sustained.
No further questions.
All right. Thank you very much. Your excuse. Mr. Rivera, may you declare or recall your witness?
Yeah,
Please keep in mind my cautionary instructions that remain in effect, and they, of course, must be obeyed. And thank you again.